Again, tell us what's happening tonight.
Well, we're having a talk and learning session on property known as Brookside. As many people are aware, it's for sale or has been sold by the town and the province to a developer. A lot of that's kind of been non-transparent. There have been a lot of rumors about what's going to happen to the property. So the ACO wanted to give a presentation on the history of the property so people understand how unique and great the property is, and also to ensure we're between the sale and the final sale that some of the rumors or information that we've heard of emanating from the town could be remediated by public support.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably need to be corrected, but there's three historical buildings to the site.
Yes, there's three remaining. Strathmore is the one everyone knows, the 1906 summer house of Charles Donnelly. There's a little house that used to be the head psychiatrist's house in the middle of the property, which was an old manager's house when it was a cattle farm. And then there's this beautiful little coach house that was part of the Rowe estate, which was, the main house was demolished, but this little, it's not so little actually, but it's a beautiful redesigned coach house at the rear off Cottesmore. And it was designed by one of the United States' most prominent architectural firms.
Can anything be done? Like, I guess the discussion revolves around, I take it again, what can be done to save if that's the case? Are they recognized as architectural heritage sites?
Not yet. You can't, when it's provincially owned, they can't be designated by a municipality. So when the house is sold and becomes private, then it can be designated. We're hoping that we can persuade we all recognize that development will occur. We just want good development, and we want the aspects that make Coburg and the important heritage buildings to remain within a creative development plan.
That's the main thing tonight, so just to educate people on how important these heritage buildings are, and to nobody wants to stop progress, but just to sort of save.
Exactly, and we've got a few examples of places I've been where they have done inventive, adaptive reuse.
Beautiful.
During the talk and maybe a discussion afterwards, the ACO decided to hold a meeting at this time because the property had been sold and the deadline for finalizing was coming, and we had heard all this information coming out of supposedly the Victoria Hall, and it was very concerning, which we'll go into, and I thought people have to know this, but I forgot this is Coburg and everyone seems to know it anyway. But we'll go over that part again. But what I principally want to do too is to show, give you the history, the detailed history and what the buildings looked like, and the potential for the property, because this is, I mean, we all agree or understand that it will be sold and will be developed. At this point, it seems doubtful that anything else will happen to it. So we want to make sure we get the best we can and save the heritage elements, the important heritage elements, the important natural elements, and maintain that character and through a creative development, I'll win the lottery too, but we could, you know, it could be something for Coburg as opposed to something that's just another development where everything's wiped off. And so we're the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, the Coburg and East Northumberland branch. Rumors was that a 4-story house was going to be built, or building was going to be built right in front of it. So it could sit there and decay for as long as Sidbrook. And by the way, Sidbrook, it closed in 2000. That's one thing we're going to do. We have to decide which council, which we have to prepare, so it's either going to be one in the near future. So we have, you know, we put this up fairly quickly once we heard the rumors, so now we have to get the delegation. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Lynn is behind. Oh, next.
Sorry.
No, Ellen, and then you, and then you're over here, sorry. I know, okay, well, first over there. Just scream at me.
I would just like to know, has the deal been completed?
Well, again,
Because
we
there
don't.
seems to be so much.
Okay, she's asking if the deal can be, has been completed.
November 13th.
Well, they say the closing date is November 13th, conditional.
But
And
we
we don't know.
and we don't know what the conditions are.
And I heard someone email me and said it's fallen through, so I don't, you know, again, it's the lack of transparency and the lack of knowledge and the rumors that are going around that show how important everyone thinks this piece of property is, but there's no response from the town hall or the town to give any information out about it. Well, I read it in that.
Burgat. Councilor Aaron Burgat. I'm not speaking on behalf of council, obviously. That's the mayor's job. You know, Councilor Bouton and myself are here tonight, obviously, to gather information. The only thing I can say, like as far as there was discussions at council decided at the time it wasn't in the best interest to purchase the property, so we passed on it. Obviously, lots of things have unfolded and changed, and I can understand that, you know, there's some degree of interest in particular items. And as for the sale, I do not know, and I don't believe Miriam knows, as far as who's bought it, when the closing date. Until that actually officially happens, I am just in as much of the dark as all of you. So I would suggest that once the sale is finalized, that's when it gives great opportunity. I think there's a lot of good conversations here about doing delegations or whatever to council, express your ideas, opinions, whatever it is, to council through whether it's delegation as a whole or individually. We welcome that, obviously, and obviously look at being a former planning development coordinator. I sat on the Heritage Committee. I can understand why there's lots of very great things and positive things about Coburg and its heritage. So I know there's a lot of appetite if people come forward to obviously preserve buildings such as the ones spoken to tonight. So, sorry, Lynn, you have a question?
I'm not trying to be difficult, but,
Yep.
but why did you say no? Because
Unfortunately,
no, just one moment. There have been so many public consultations about and ideas that were asked for by Mr. Puccini's office. Tell me what you'd like to put there. So people have been sending in things, wonderful cooking school, cultural hub.
I understand. Unfortunately,
So
a lot of those items were discussed in closed session, so unfortunately I can't.
No, but
we
you
don't
said
divulge.
it was decided that it wasn't something to go for. I just think
And like I said, I don't believe I can discuss those items because those were discussed in closed session.
Right, so So is there an opportunity to come back to council realistically and say, okay, we'd like you to reconsider this?
To reconsider buying it.
Yes?
At this time, I would say if the sale doesn't go through for whatever reason, I would say if that's the wish of a group of the community, I would say bring that to council. But, you know, if a sale goes through, unfortunately, my understanding is there's a deal in place. Ted, do you have a question for me, or is it for just the general?
I have to say, just very quickly, you know, I've lived in this town for almost 30 years, and one of the things that I've noticed in the last few years is that there is a huge veil of secrecy about what the council is doing.
Not true.
All the
Not true.
opportunities, excuse me, all the opportunities to participate on citizenship committees, advisory committees are gone. And we're just not getting the information. And all I can say is, the only thing that will stop politicians is strength in numbers.
It's all published.
That's it.
To take advantage of the features on the site. And I'll give you an example. Floodplain. The outer reaches of the floodplain are stable soil. Myself and agricultural graduate took samples and sent them to Guelph. Ideal land for organic farming could produce anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 worth of organic food a year. Okay? Now, this comes out of studying the possibilities. We've thrown around a lot of great ideas here, but you've got to get in there and look specifically at certain ideas. You could take Strathmore Hall and turn it into a cultural center. It has the capacity to house the Coburg Art Gallery, for example, and also to have a couple of small theaters, lots of great meeting rooms, etc. So it would be the cultural center of a neighborhood. Connected to that 100-meter, 120-meter long open walking mall would be the civic center for a neighborhood with businesses that are appropriate, you know, serving the number of people that have easy access to them. You know, hairstylists, child services, small shops, specialty shops, that sort of thing. But all focused on this civic center. So you've got a civic center connected by a mall to a cultural center. Around that are 5 blocks of housing, each of which could be given out or bought by a developer once he's produced plans that there would be a competition. They do this in Sweden. It's easy. We've got examples of how to do this. But the developers would compete with each other over any one of these 5 blocks of residential land. The whole idea is to produce a robust, dynamic neighborhood, something we don't have anymore in Coburg. I grew up in one in Montreal, and it was absolutely wonderful, and it certainly shaped me. But anyway, you know, there are all kinds of possibilities. As far as the town investing, Angus Reid, former mayor, bought Northam Industrial Park for $30 million. Turned out to be the smartest decision the town's ever made. So, you know, don't get turned off by some of these ideas. But we do need a lot more study and to let the town know, you know, there are possibilities that haven't been discussed, and just to try to hold back. Anyway, sorry, there's a lot more, but you don't. I said
I was just about to say, if you walk along the creek in Brookside. It's a gorgeous creek, beautiful trees. It's much nicer than Victoria Park. And if that area is designated as a no-build area, this is something that we can push for that's realistic. You can't push beyond, you don't know what the developer's going to do. But if that creek would be, if we could convince the developer to dedicate that creek area to the land conservatory, the creek would become like a park, and it would remain public. So I don't know whether in the sale the creek is honored, but it might stay within the developer. I would like that creek area to be part of a park area for Coburg. Anyway, it's just an idea.
Okay. Hello? Everybody can hear me? Okay. I've listened to all of the speeches and the... Oh, okay. I told you I had a loud voice. I have listened to everybody with their suggestions, and it all seems down to the fact that we have not the corrections, the information that we should have. It's the mayor, and we need to really send a letter from everybody to require that he comes to a meeting to give us the information we require. All of you write a letter to the council, demand that he comes, not somebody who doesn't know the information even though he's on the council. That's my suggestion.
But what are we going to say to him? That's the trick.
If we all of us get together, well, I don't know, I shouldn't really be speaking here, but I've just listened to so much, and I think that you've got a group here that could discuss on your computers what it is that you want him to say, what the demands are, and then insist that you send it. He has to meet with you if you, all of you, get the information demanding that he come. That's my
I just had one comment about when he was talking about this creek bed, and when I was looking at maps and things, there's a blank piece of property around the north end of the creek. And I also always thought, what a good idea, something might be good if we could extend the creek pathway and somehow circumvent the railway to create a pathway up to the CCC. And then you could have a connection between those two campuses, if you want to cut that. So, any other questions? Oh,
I would like to see, if this deal falls through, that the town reconsider purchasing this property. And even if it takes some private citizens or the Northumberland Land Trust, those kind of people would probably be quite interested in a 32-acre chunk of land to turn it into a public space. So the town folk who are on our council, if this deal falls through, please let us know that it's fallen through, and maybe we can put some pressure where it needs to be.
it just reminded me of something in the 70s, because we all love Victoria Park and the entrance gates. Well, when I was young, in the 70s, there was the chateau on one side and the Lakeview on the other. When it came to demolishing those two buildings at different times, people went to the town council to say, will you buy this? And they said no. So both those properties were bought through private contributions to get those, to preserve them for park. And it was surprising what you get, because someone who you would all know the name of, I went to him and said, he said, well, I'm thinking that might be a nice place for my wife and I to have a apartment when we retire. You know, so, but would you even think that that would be wonderful now to have 2 6-story apartments flanking the gates of the, so, you know, that's the kind of thing, you know. And if anyone's interested in joining a group to help, I'm sure the ACO would be happy to include people.
Stand up to Queen's Park. I've been trying to move something on the Brookside property for over 2 years. Everyone I talk to is, 1, we can't afford it, 2, we have no authority. The first question I'm not sure is true. The second question is true, but this is not a question of authority. This all emanates from Queen's Park. It all emanates from the cronyism of Queen's Park. It is political. There's no other way to put it. It's political. And politics isn't about authority, it's about influence. And if we can get our council to stand up and start to yell, and we get on our hind feet and start to yell, and we make Mr. Piccini think that he's going to lose his seat if he doesn't pay attention, then we might get somewhere. You remember Lou Rinaldi, longtime member of parliament. The one time he wouldn't listen to the people, he lost his seat. He learned a lesson and he came back. We've got to make them think that they're threatened by us for their ability to govern from Queen's Park, and only then will we start to get our answers. Other than that, what they're doing is private. They don't have to tell us, and they're not going to tell us. And remember Wesleyville. They came in at the very last second and screwed that deal because they didn't want to see what happened, what should have happened. They didn't want to see that happen. Now we've got in the background developers fighting over the Wesleyville property. So if you want to get something done, you have to yell. And the meetings are nice, but you've got to get out there and be heard. And if you're not going to be heard, if you're not going to put yourself out front and threaten Piccini, literally, you're not going to get anything done. They're just going to say, oh, we've consulted, we had a meeting, and then they're going to do whatever they want to do, which is help their friends that are developers in Toronto.